The passive-aggressive enabler doesn't try to stop you outright. Instead, they quietly erode your confidence. They disguise doubt as logic. They call judgment maturity. They wrap fear in the language of care, and if you don't notice it, you begin to believe them. You hold yourself back, thinking you're being smart, when in reality, you've just absorbed their limitations. Jung believed this type is especially dangerous because they often convince you they're helping, when what they're really doing is keeping you small. Because if you grow without them, they lose their grip on you. Their sense of importance dies. So instead, they clip your wings early on and call it love. But it isn't love, it's control hidden inside support. The fourth type is the secret competitor. This one can be the hardest to notice at first. This person isn't competing with everyone. They're competing with you. But quietly, they might act like your friend. They might clap for you. They might tell you they're proud of you. But watch closely, every time something good happens for you, they make it about them. They downplay your success. They tell a slightly better story of their own. They redirect the attention, so you're never fully celebrated. Jung explained that this type comes from a place of hidden inferiority. They don't hate you directly. What they resent is what you remind them of, the parts of themselves they haven't developed. Instead of facing their insecurity and growing, they secretly compete. They copy your ideas and pass them off as their own. They give you compliments with a sting in them. They can only celebrate you when they're ahead of you, never when you're ahead of them. You feel it in the tension, the awkward energy, the forced support. And if you ignore it, you'll keep trusting someone who doesn't see you as a friend, but as a rival. And here's the real twist. When you fail, they feel relief. They won't say it out loud, but you'll hear it in their words. They'll say something like, "I was afraid this might happen. I tried to warn you." That false comfort is just a mask for their satisfaction that you've been brought back down. This type is not a teammate. They are a shadow competitor, pretending to stand by your side but secretly waiting for your fall. Jung warned never to trust someone who can clap when it's not their turn to win. Now, that's already 4 out of the 6 dangerous patterns Jung revealed. Each one is more subtle than the last, and each one gets harder to detect the longer they're in your life. But there are still 2 more, and these final 2 are often the hardest to spot because they don't come across as controlling or selfish at first glance. In fact, they look wise, kind, even healing. They don't control you through obvious force. They control you by feeding your need for growth, love, or clarity. Jung saw these as some of the most manipulative because they can so easily disguise themselves as mentors or empaths. Let's look at the 5th type. The 5th type is what we could call the spiritual narcissist, or the wise one. This person presents themselves as mature, calm, and highly evolved. They act like they are above the everyday struggles everyone else goes through. They talk about growth, alignment, shadow work, mindfulness. They may quote philosophy. They may speak softly, carrying an air of wisdom. But beneath this polished image, Jung saw a split. On the surface, they cling to their identity as enlightened. Underneath, their shadow leaks out as superiority and control. They don't dominate you by shouting. They dominate by always appearing calm while you look emotional. If you challenge them, they make you feel like the one with the problem. They say things like, "That sounds like a trigger you haven't dealt with yet." "I'm just holding space. You still have inner work to do." It feels like wisdom, but it's actually a strategy to make you question yourself. They never admit they're wrong. They never let you win an argument. Because in their world, if you're upset, it means you're less developed, and the more you try to match them, the more they pull the frame higher, always staying above you. Jung warned us about this because it's easy to mistake their performance for real depth. They didn't destroy their ego. They just dressed it up. They buried it under fancy words and spiritual identity. And the more you look to them for guidance, the more dependent you become. But they don't actually want your growth. They want authority. They don't want equals. They want followers. And if you're not careful, you'll mistake their fake stillness for true wisdom when it's really just a mask for control. The sixth type is what Jung described as the empath who ends up in control. This person feels everything: your moods, your energy, your tone, even the tension you're not saying out loud. At first, this seems like a blessing. They make you feel deeply seen. They comfort you. They sense your pain. It feels like a gift. But over time, this gift turns into a trap. Their sensitivity becomes a way to control the environment, and especially you. Soon, you start holding yourself back so you don't upset them. You stop expressing anger because it hurts them. You avoid frustration because they act like your emotions cause them to spiral. Slowly, you begin to silence yourself for their sake. You end up managing their reactions more than your own, and before you know it, you've lost your freedom to express who you really are. Jung explained that many who claim to be highly sensitive are actually projecting their own unhealed chaos onto others. Instead of learning to deal with their inner world, they demand everyone else adjust for them. This is when empathy becomes toxic. They don't want true connection. They want safety at your expense. And when you can't meet their constant needs, suddenly you're the villain. You're called insensitive, unstable, or uncaring, even when none of that is true. This final mask is powerful because it makes you responsible for their emotions, when in reality, they've never learned to carry them. They place their burden on you, and over time, it breaks you down. Jung saw this pattern again and again. The empath who doesn't use sensitivity for connection, but for control. And once you fall into their trap, it's very hard to get out. And if you are not careful, you can spend months, even years, trying to manage the emotions of someone who never took responsibility for themselves in the first place. You might confuse their emotional chaos with emotional depth. You might mistake their endless sensitivity as a sign of purity. You might see their controlling behavior as a form of closeness. But by the time you realize what's happening, your own identity can become trapped inside the storm of someone else's emotions. That isn't Laboud surrendering your own mind and giving away your power. And the hard truth is this: the only real advice in this situation is to walk away, because a person like this will never come out and tell you that they're dangerous. Instead, they'll say they're just too sensitive or that they feel too deeply. And unless you are strongly rooted in yourself, you'll start to believe it. You'll take on their story as your truth. You'll begin to think their pain is your fault. You'll believe their emotional breakdowns are somehow your responsibility to fix. But the truth is, they're not. You didn't create their damage. You simply stood too close to it. And that's the deeper warning. After hearing about these different types of people, you might naturally ask, why do people like this exist at all? Why do they behave this way? Jung's answer is brutally direct. It's because they never faced their own shadow, so now they make others carry it for them. They never admitted the manipulative parts of their personality, so they project them onto you. They never accepted their own need for control, so they exercise control over others in the name of helping, guiding, or loving. They never took responsibility for their own pain, so they push it onto your shoulders as if it's your job to heal them. And the difficult truth is, these kinds of people are not rare. They are everywhere. They especially thrive in spaces where people don't yet know how to protect their own energy. Jung believed that the only real protection against this is self-awareness, the ability to spot the mask, the ability to see past the surface-level kindness, the ability to hear what's not being said, and most importantly, the ability to walk away before you demand proof, because once you see the pattern, you can never unsee it. You know what's happening. Now, let's go even deeper. Beyond just identifying these people, you need to understand how to stop attracting them, why your own shadow allows you to tolerate them, and how to finally become someone they cannot manipulate, control, or break. By now, you've seen the list of 6 people Jung warned about: the constant victim, the charming mirror, the quiet enabler, the hidden competitor, the so-called spiritual narcissist, and the empathic controller. Jung didn't say to avoid them because they are always evil people. He said it because they are deeply unaware of themselves. And when a person has no awareness of their own shadow, they make you live in it. They become the victim who makes you feel guilty for having boundaries. They become the mirror who only reflects back what you want to see until the mask slips. They become the enabler who never speaks up but quietly keeps the dysfunction alive. They become the competitor who secretly wants you to lose so they can feel better about themselves.